Hello, and welcome to my first lecture in the section on advanced writing techniques. Now here, we've gone beyond how to plot things out in the separate sections of writing and how to get going writing, and we've even gone through basic writing skills on how to construct paragraphs and stories. And now what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the more advanced concepts, how to make your writing more interesting. In this particular lecture, we're going to talk about foreshadowing, symbolism, red herrings, and plot twists. Oh my. So, it's interesting. I thought I'd put these together. I thought it'd be an interesting juxtaposition because foreshadowing and symbolism are two ways to give hints to your readers as to what's going to happen, whereas red herrings and plot twists are ways to fool them. So we're going to go through these four techniques here quickly with some simple writing examples, and I think you'll get the hang of it. And then we're going to continue to do that through the rest of the section. So let's go ahead and look at foreshadowing and symbolism represent two ways to provide story hints to your readers, whereas red herrings and plot twists represent two ways to surprise by turning the tables on your readers or completely reversing what they thought was happening with what's really happening. So let's begin this by taking a look at foreshadowing. Foreshadowing is providing a hint as to what's going to happen, or foreshadowing events to come in your story. So there's a few ways to foreshadow. This is what I would call blunt foreshadowing. Imagine running across this sentence as you're reading a book. Nothing would prepare Linda for her husband's death upon her return. Wow, Linda hasn't returned yet, but her husband's going to die. That's some foreshadowing of what's going to happen, and it's very blunt, and it's very descriptive. Imagine instead what I would call a vague foreshadowing. Nothing would prepare Linda for what awaited her upon her return. That's ominous. Now you notice one of the things, you get a little bit more ominous. Even though the first one talked about death, the second one talked about you don't know. That's somehow even worse, isn't it? So it provides a certain ominous way. Maybe you'll want to end a chapter that way. Do a little foreshadowing. Ooh, a little tempting, it's called a cliffhanger when you end a chapter with something that suggests what's going to go on or puts the character in a bad position where readers want to keep reading. Here's another type of foreshadowing. I call it symbolic foreshadowing, and this is a little more sophisticated. Consider, Linda barely took notice as the long shadows grew as if the hands of death were reaching out of the grave for her and her family. Oh my, that's kind of symbolic. I mean, they're just shadows at this point, but we have the hands of the grave coming out. And then what about this one? The ravens arrived around twilight to little fanfare. Now, these are both symbolic ways of suggesting that something bad is going to happen. So there's a symbolic foreshadowing that you can do too. Foreshadowing is a very neat way to create cliffhangers. But yeah, pretty much to create cliffhangers. That's it, isn't it? So use it for that purpose. The next thing I wanted to talk with you about is the symbolism. So referring to things or events through culturally recognized symbolic references. So recognize this. In Western culture, both ravens and dark shadows typically represent doom. So in that previous example that we had where Linda barely noticed the shadows that grew as if hands of death were reaching out of the grave, that's pretty ominous. But even the ravens arrived at twilight to little fanfare. That kind of implies doom arrived about twilight to little fanfare. So you can use symbolism to sneak in your foreshadowing. And there's other ways and reasons to use symbolism. For instance, you could have symbolic names. The names that you pick for characters like Maurice Fairchild. Now, doesn't that sound like a very fair child? A delicate person and so on. It's definitely not a Rambo time character, right? So you can use symbolism in names of things. So that's foreshadowing and symbolism, which represent two ways to give hints to your readers as to what's going on. The next thing we were going to talk about is red herrings and plot twists, which represent two ways to turn the tables on your reader. So let's look at red herrings first. These are false leads used to tempt your reader into believing in the wrong conclusion. So you're giving them false leads as to what's going to happen. For instance, Miss Parsons' eyes always looked away whenever I made mention of the murder. Miss Parson didn't do it, but I'm laying a red herring, which suggests that Miss Parson might have done it, which gets the reader thinking that way. And that's the wrong way because the butler did it, right? Or could it be Lord Simpson had no alibi for the hours during which the murder occurred? Suspicion cast upon Lord Simpson. Red herrings are used extensively throughout mysteries to draw out the suspense by pointing people at the wrong person that did it. But it can be used in any genre, in any kind of circumstance. It's just a matter of giving a person a little misleading information. You can whip out the plot twist. Okay, once you've built reader expectations using foreshadowing, symbolism, and red herrings, you can pull the rug out from under them with a juicy plot twist. Plot twists involve revealing your subterfuge by divulging the true plot. A great plot twist can make or break a story. So here you're building all the way down. Jane did it, Jane did it, Jane did it. It turns out the narrator of the book did it. Holy cow, that's a plot twist for you. I always wanted to write that into a story. So another way to surprise readers, that's what you want to do. You want to surprise them. So you lead them into your story, and then once they think they know what's going on, you hit them with a plot twist. So there we go. We have everything finished and tightly knotted up, don't we? It's all done, isn't it? Oh, wait, there's the Cary ending. This is the one made famous by Stephen King in his book called Cary. Let me tell you what happens at the end of the book. I'm sorry to mess it up for you, but you're a writer, so you're analyzing. Here's what happens. You think Cary is dead and buried in a grave that this girl goes and visits. And as she's laying the flowers on the grave of Cary, a hand comes reaching out of the grave and grabs that girl's arms. Now, I think she was dreaming or something like that, and then it turns into another ending. But what it has to do is the false ending. When you think everything's done, everything's wrapped up, everything's nice and clean, and all of a sudden, whoa, here comes a brand new story at you. It's a great way to lead into a sequel, too, by the way. So when you think it's over, but it's not, that's the Cary ending. So that's another surprise thing that you can use, which is a more advanced writing technique. And that's about all I've got to say on that. Up next is going to be writing authentic dialogue. I'll see you in the next lecture.